Hello my dear friends! In this video I want to show you my painting process from the beginning to the end. A lot of people have asked for it, but just to say in the beginning, everything I say and do is just my way of doing it. You don't have to implement it as a must in your painting process. Of course you can still experiment in finding your way, and I'll be happy if you let me know what helps you and if you have more tips and tricks to add to this video. I will paint one of my Alice paintings which I have recently uploaded on my Instagram account. I will also do a Q&A later in the video with questions you have asked me, so stay tuned and give it a thumbs up if you like it. Before I start with a detailed sketch, I first of all try to decide on the composition that I'd like for the painting. In this picture, my background will have the shape of a heart, so I set my focal point not exactly in the middle of it, because I think that would look a bit boring and stiff. But with the rule of thirds in mind, I sketch Alice a bit more to the left of the heart and let the plants and roses wrap around her as decoration. Because I want Alice and the big rose to kind of interact, I have their faces turned to each other. The sketch can be really loose and doesn't have to look good at all. It just serves you as a first layout. And from there you can go on and add more details in the second sketch. Once I have decided on my composition, it's time for a cleanup. This is a process for me where I make my last decisions on the overall sketch. Questions that I ask myself during the process are, for example, are the proportions okay? Do I want to exaggerate a bit more with the shapes of the figures? Or do my eyes wander away from the part in the picture that I actually want to stand out? If I can give a satisfied answer to all of these questions and have made all the needed changes, I start tracing the lines that I like, form the shapes within the drawing and add all the details that were missing before. And now, while I clean up my sketch, let's go ahead and answer the first of your questions. Is commission work really scary to do? Also, do you prefer working commissions or your regular work? I have to say that it took me a long time till I decided I would take on commissions because I didn't feel adequate enough. So yes, it was very scary to me to ask for money for things I've previously done as a hobby. And to this day it still can be very scary. Every painting is different and every client expects something different from you. It is always an adventure. And when you compare yourself to other artists, you always think that there is someone better than you who could do this job. But if you want to make an income, you have to stop listening to the voices that pull you down. At least by now I tell myself that the client would not have asked me to paint something for them in the first place if they did not like my style or the way I paint. And that kind of leads to the second question, if I prefer commissions or my regular work. Let's say it like that. When I feel inspired and have an idea for a project that I really like, I will love the painting process. So that can happen while working on a commission, but of course mostly happens when I work on my own projects, because obviously the idea and the inspiration have already come to me. I also love working on my own projects because I can't let anyone down except for myself, so I feel a little less stressed. There are some days though I don't feel inspired at all, and I really welcome any kind of commission, because it'll keep me thinking in ways which I haven't thought of before, and I paint things which I might never have painted. It gets me out of my comfort zone, which is nerve-wracking but good in some ways, because it helps me grow and improve as an artist. It is also a way to connect with my fans more personally. Sometimes I feel I'm getting to know you a bit more when I paint you, because I get to hear your stories and see your personal reference pictures. And when the client is happy with the result, it makes me very happy. Let's go back to the painting. Now I take a picture of the finished sketch. I open it with Procreate on my iPad, because the next step for me is to find a digital color script for the overall painting. I do it digitally because it lets me experiment faster, but I have also seen artists that do it traditionally. Sometimes I have some colors in mind, and sometimes I have to just try and experiment till I have something I like. In the beginning I left this step out because I was too lazy and just wanted to go ahead with painting the picture. But now I implemented this step as a really important one in my process because it helps me to have made all my decisions on the colors beforehand, so I don't have to focus on it anymore when I paint. It happened too often that I started a painting and didn't like how the colors turned out. Making a color script beforehand is a bit of extra work, but it eases your workflow later and saves you a lot of time because you don't need to repaint the picture to aim for a better result. Colors, for me, are very important in a picture because they convey or support a message that you want to give. So I better take the time to make a good decision on the colors. Now we're almost ready to paint. The only thing left is to transfer the sketch onto the paper I chose to paint on. The paper I'm going to use here is a very cheap mixed media paper that I found on Amazon. Because I'm painting with gouache, it was just important to me that the paper is strong enough for some heavy paint, which I layer on top of each other. Starting with the background, I use frisket masking film to cover up everything in the painting but the heart. An art knife lets me easily remove the parts that I want to color. I do this so I don't paint over the rest of the sketch. Because I want to blend some colors for the heart, I can paint over it without caring if I drop the gouache on any other detail in this picture. It makes the painting process smoother and easier. And as a bonus, I love to remove the frisket film later on and see the result of the dried paint. I paint all the way from the background to the foreground. It's the easiest way for me to organize my painting process. Now as I cut the film, mix the paint with the help of the color script I made before, and as I paint this picture, I'm going to answer more of your questions. So the next question is, are you self-taught or did you go to art school? If homeschool would count as a kind of art school, then that's that. Otherwise, I'm self-taught. But my mom gave my siblings and I many opportunities to be creative very early on. She managed to have always pens, paints, and paper available in the house. She sat down with us and really implemented a desire within us to create at a very early stage. Since then, it became part of our lives. In school, I picked English and arts as my main subjects. After school, I was always between two minds. Should I go to art school or not? I tried to apply once or twice, but they wouldn't take me. But that didn't stop me from doing what I love, so practice and looking at other artists' stuff kept me inspired. There are so many ways of improving your skills. You just need to be curious enough to find those ways and see what gets you where you want to be. I heard making art is like training a muscle. If you keep on using it, your art muscle will grow. It just depends on how much effort and motivation you put into it. So, do I think an art school is necessary to work as an artist? No, not really. But maybe the subject is worth another video, because there's so much that could be said about it. Just showing you my setup now. Here are all the materials I'm going to use. I will put them in the description box so you can look them up if you want. I'm gonna paint with gouache colors. That's what I mostly like to paint with. I'm probably gonna make a more detailed video about gouache if you're interested. Just write me in the comments if you would like that and if you have any specific questions about that kind of medium. But let's move on and I'll answer another question that you asked me. How long is your working process from finding the idea to the finished picture? Well, I can't easily answer that question. The time to finish a picture really varies, especially when it comes to developing an idea. Sometimes the idea comes along while sketching, and sometimes the idea develops for some time in my mind before I put it on paper. But let me answer this question with the example of commissions, since I get the question very often of how long it'll take me to finish the painting. So after I get your request and your reference pictures, I try to develop the idea with you together. That takes me 1 or mostly 3 very rough sketches and a little bit of writing back and forth with you. The sketches help you and me see what we're going for. I do very little thumbnails because I don't want to lose time on sketching all the details yet before we have even chosen the overall composition of the picture. Then I make a cleaner sketch and send it to you. If you're happy with it, I'll do a few color scripts that you can choose from before I'm going ahead with the painting. It is all very similar to the steps in this video. Most time is spent with all the decisions beforehand. When it comes to painting, it takes me an average 2 days to finish the picture. But here again, it depends on the size of the painting and the details included. And of course, how many breaks I take in between. For this Alice painting, it took me about 2 days to paint. But adding that little thumbnail and developing the idea beforehand, it took me a bit longer. How much longer? I don't know. I can't really tell when an idea comes up the first time. It feels like it's been there all along, but then it just gets stuck with me. And then I just go for it. How long did it take you to find your own style? To be honest, I don't know if I even have one. I think the more I force a certain style upon myself, the less I'm able to develop one in a natural way. To have my own style, I always thought I would have to limit myself and put my way of painting into boundaries. I thought I'd have to keep on painting in one specific way that doesn't allow me to experiment a lot. Like this, I thought I'd keep my style and people would be able to identify it as one. But I have to tell you, that got me very tired and limited. Please allow yourself to experiment a lot. For me, it was the only way in finding out what styles I like. So I picked up things from here and there, and I'm still in that experimental process. Also, ask yourself, why do you do the things the way you do? Or why do you like the things you like? What message do you want to give? And what emotions do you want to put in your pictures? How do you want people to feel when they look at your art? What are the traits in other artists' paintings that you like to implement in your art? If you consider these questions during your art process, your style will develop just by itself. At least that's what it did for me. Because I personally think it's all about what's within you and how you want to communicate it. That can be very different for every painting you make. But people will still recognize a style. Because if you are a normal human being, and that's what I assume what you are, you don't change within just one day. So your way of thinking, or your opinions, your interests, and your way of using a brush, holding a pen or drawing a circle will always be very similar. You can't just change these things from one day to another. These are traits that when combined will form a style. It may just need a bit of polishing and finding the traits you want to speak louder than others. It's your language. And the more you research other people's art process, you'll pick up more of their techniques. It's a very natural process. Exploring and sticking with the things you like. It's adding knowledge upon knowledge. And since life is all about experiencing and changing and improving, your style will change over time. So, no need to stick with just one way because it'll prevent you from learning new ways. My advice is, don't worry too much about an art style, just do whatever feels good. The style will develop over time in its very own way and in your own unique language. And if you feel like you need a change of expression, then just go for it and keep learning. It's an ongoing process. If you make a mistake while painting, do you fix it somehow or do you start over? If you fix it, how? I don't know how well you have noticed in this video how often I painted over the parts I didn't like, but I did, many times. Alice's dress, for example. I think I had to cut out some parts of how I was repainting it because I was doing it very, very often. I couldn't choose on the colors for the lighter and darker parts of the dress and where the light would fall. So I repainted it kinda like 3 or 4 times. Maybe that's why I like painting with gouache, because it's very opaque and it lets me fix my mistakes very easily. I don't know how well I could fix my pictures if I was using watercolors. I don't have a lot of practice with that medium. But if I screw up a picture a lot, then it also happens that I would repaint the whole thing. Though I really try to avoid it by making a color script beforehand. But of course, mistakes happen and it's always a challenge to fix those. Oh, and what I also love about gouache is that you can dilute it with water. So if you get some water on the brush, you can remove some dried paint that you didn't want there. I wouldn't recommend it with large parts of the painting because it happens very often that it smears and smudges even more. but it is really helpful with little mistakes. And when it's dry, you can paint over it again. What influence does your family and friends have on you as an artist? I think I was asked that question because there are many artists within my family and my friends. Maybe some of you have heard the names before because my siblings' art is a lot more popular than mine. They are called Pixie Cult and JoJo's Art in social media, if you want to look them up. And if you do so, you will find out that I have a completely different art style than theirs. I don't know why, but maybe it is because we want to express different things and have a passion for other stuff. But nevertheless, I can say that we do inspire each other. Of course, if you grow up in a family full of artists and you do art together, that's what happens naturally. Sometimes we would brainstorm together or collaborate in one way or another. We pass on tips and tricks that helped us and follow many of the same artists on social media. But I love that we're still keeping our unique style while doing so. It shows that we're taking inspiration from each other, but we're not copying the art of the other person. If you have followed me on Instagram for a little while now, you might know that I also have a podcast with two other friends. It's called Carpe Artis, and there we talk about any kind of art topics. For example, how to become an artist, how to overcome an art block, or how to keep it tidy and clean in your art studio. We also often have very interesting guests in the podcast that talk about their way of making art. About 2 weeks ago or so, we interviewed my auntie who's blind, but she's making art anyway. It's so interesting and inspiring. When you surround yourself with artsy people, there is no way you don't influence each other. And I'm glad my mom has always encouraged us to make art and be creative. I don't take it for granted because it also means my mom did let the artistic chaos happen. And some people consider art as a non-profitable work, but when you have someone backing you up, it makes it a whole lot easier to believe in yourself and in your skills. And as an extra, you are encouraged to do what you love most and makes you happy. Being an artist is always very challenging. You need to have a long breath, but if you get on the right start, it's worth it. Now, as you see, we're coming to an end. You will see the finished picture, and I just want to say thank you for watching and listening. If you liked this video, I'd be happy if you give me a thumbs up. If you want, you can purchase a print of this painting in my Etsy shop. You will find the link in the description box. Also, I try to put as much information together as possible. Let me know in the comments if you have more questions or want to add any information to the things I already said. Because I wasn't able to answer all of your questions in this Q&A video, I'm going to do another one with another painting. So if you don't want to miss out on that or any other video I'm going to upload in the future, don't forget to give me a follow. Thank you so much for your support and talk to you soon.